Okay, as I mentioned, my name is Justin Donato, and I'm the Vice President of Business Systems at Nintex. Now, the purpose of today's webinar is to show you some of the innovative and really exciting solutions we've put together using Nintex Forms. And through the presentation and some of the demonstrations I'll go through, show you how you can, either directly or indirectly, start using some of those solutions in your own environment and recognize the value in Nintex Forms. Now, split the presentations into two parts. The first is more of an out-of-the-box, a deep dive into the out-of-the-box features of Nintex Forms, and really about showing you what you can do with Nintex Forms pretty much from the moment you install it in your environment without any additional development or coding and so forth. As the presentation progresses and some of the demonstrations get a little more complex, I do move into the area of solution development. And the real key here is about showing how you can use Nintex Forms as part of your overall solution development strategy. Okay, just to flesh that out a little bit, as I mentioned, the first part is really about the out-of-the-box features you get with Nintex Forms. Now, as I mentioned, the key theme here is really about how you can build zero-code solutions that are delivered, managed, and administered by your business users with little or no interaction with your corporate IT department. And as we move through, I'll come to solution development. This is really about how to increase the value in your data through process automation and custom development. Alright, and so part one, I have two demonstrations I'd like to go through. The first is to cover an issue we've faced as an organization where we have a bank of PDF forms that we use to communicate with our external users and customers, just to gather information and so forth. Now, as part of this solution, we were looking for how do we do forms better? How can we get a better form? Now, in going through that process, we've analyzed the options out there. First was to extend the PDFs themselves. Second, we looked at the InfoPath web form solution, and of course, we've now come to Nintex Forms and to see the value that can bring to us as well. The second demonstration is more around collecting data. Now, as part of that demonstration, I'll just use a fairly generic kind of survey form, but the real message here is about the mobility features that come with Nintex Forms out of the box, and how you can really quickly and easily begin to broaden the base of your user audience and target them on any platform, anywhere. Okay, into the first demonstration. Now, as I mentioned, the challenge here is to how do we do a better form than the current PDF form that we've been using. So to kick off, I'll just take you to the PDF form, one of the PDF forms we've started with. Now, this is simply a form designed to capture some information to allow a partner to promote an event, and it's displayed from our partner site, Partner Central. Now, as you can see, I mean, this is a good solution. It presents very well to the end user. It carries the theming and branding from my site, as you can see in the header and footer. It's very cleanly and professionally presented, and allows me to sort of align my text and really just capture my audience's attention. Unfortunately, though, this is where the solution does start to break apart a little bit, and one of the key reasons why we're looking for a better form. As I just go ahead and start filling in this form, some of that will start to become clear. So just get some information in here, and straight away you'll see that the user experience, especially the data entry user experience, really does kind of break apart a little bit here. Now, while I can certainly use some additional controls and a little bit of extra development to go and customize my form to ensure some date entry fields, out of the box, and especially just from our graphic designer department, what we've got here is a kind of bit of a poor user experience when it comes to filling in the data in the form. But the problems really become a little more clear when I go ahead and submit this form. Now, you see here, upon submitting the form, that's gone through. I'm just going to end up with simply an email that wraps up my PDF. In fact, wraps that static data from my PDF. I think that's yeah, there we go. All right, now you can see it's this, at least from an administrative perspective, becomes kind of difficult to manage now at this stage, and some of the disadvantages of using the PDF approach do now become a little more apparent. First and foremost is that there is simply no out-of-the-box support for SharePoint. you need to buy additional software and install and configure that in your SharePoint environment to really start leveraging the value of the data that's contained in this form. Beyond that, though, there is certainly a development, or at least a configuration effort that you need to go through to email enable a document library to ensure that it's going to receive this email from that address, and then go ahead and configure the third-party software to pull the data from the right fields and go ahead and expose that as metadata in your document library before, to mention again, before you can start recognizing the value of the information captured in that static form. Some of the other issues, though, are around mobile support. I don't really have now a good mobile story to present to my user audience. That form looks fine on a desktop and even would present fairly well on most tablets. But the moment I want to get that onto a smartphone, again, the presentation story does start to fall apart a little bit at that stage. It's not really a very browser-friendly solution either. As you can see here, this form is downloaded to my local environment, use my local email solution to go ahead and send that back to me, the form author. Now that's a browser-friendly story does certainly extend, as you can see here, in that I've now had to download this form into my user's environment, which straight away causes some complications in that I can really quickly find that I have multiple versions of this form sort of now out there in the wild waiting to potentially come back to me. And the real issues there come about when, if someone is to submit an old form to me that doesn't have the same fields that I'm expecting in my document library, I'm immediately going to run into problems. So you can see there is certainly an administrative overhead managing a solution like this as well. Now, for a lot of those reasons, I'll just close out of this. We've lent towards the Nintex form as our solution, and I've come up with in this case, definitely a much better solution. Now, straight away you can see here that immediately I have a much better and far more friendly browser experience for my form. You can also see, while it certainly is subjective, this form looks as good as the PDF form. I've been able to carry forth the branding from my site, as you can see a banner at the top there, and I have a footer presence as well. And I have, again, very clean presentation as well, formatted text, nicely aligned fields and so forth. So again, it presents a very professional form to my user audience. As I go ahead and fill in some of the information here. And straight away you can see here, I'm going to capture a date. I know it's going to be a date, and I know it's going to be in the format that I'm expecting. Now, again, while that is possible with the PDF, this is just standard out-of-the-box functionality for the form. I've been able to drop on a standard ASP.NET user control, and again, ensure I'm capturing a date while improving the overall user experience and just simplifying the data entry process. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and scroll to the bottom. You can see just again standard data entry fields replicating what I had in my PDF. I can now go ahead and submit the form. And as you can see, the result I have here is my list item. Now, I'll certainly expand on this in a later demonstration, but at this point I just want to focus on the fact that as soon as I have that information submitted from my form and now in a list, it now has immediate value to you and your organization, simply by the fact that you can now do something with that information, whether that be porting it out to a spreadsheet for some advanced analysis or even just running a workflow on it, as I will do a little bit later. Again, you can now get immediate value from that information without any additional processing or configuration or applied functionality. Okay, I'll just go back to my form. Now, of course, the immediate question is, why not use an InfoPath web-based form? Which is a good question because it is a great product. I mean, to be able to take an asset from your corporate intranet, in this case a form, and publish it out to the public internet securely is a very sophisticated and complex bit of functionality. As I said, it's a great product, but it's part of that complexity and administrative overhead is one of the reasons why, as a team, we've steered away from the InfoPath web form. Again, though, one of the other issues there is just a little bit of a challenging mobility story as well. I mean, we can go really in one of two directions. We could either create a form with a one-size-fits-all that will certainly look and present fine on a desktop and potentially a tablet, but again, the story is going to break apart a little bit when it comes to displaying that on a more mobile device like a smartphone. One of the other issues, as I mentioned, as a team we certainly faced, is that administrative overhead. For anyone who's had to go through that process, the configuration, the complexities that are involved in getting an InfoPath web form presented to the internet securely, it can be a little bit complex and does certainly require a bit of overhead in work and just additional complexity in your environment, and can really quickly either extend the timeline for an internal project, or if you're having a consultant working with you on that, those costs can sort of come around a little more quickly as well. So again, some of those challenges is one of the main reasons why we've steered away from the InfoPath web-based form. However, though, that leads me to a good point here, is how do I now get my very much on-premise Nintex form out there into the internet? The key for doing that is to make it a live-enabled form, or a Nintex Live form. I'm just going to touch on exactly how we do that and how easy it is to do that. While I'm bringing this up, just to explain the concept there a little bit, Nintex has a product called Nintex Live that lives in Microsoft's Azure, out there in the cloud. Now, in publishing this form to Azure and to Nintex Live, I'm effectively pushing the XML that describes the form out to Azure. Now, in that environment, we also have another solution, which is the form visualizer, which takes the XML, again, that describes the form and serves that out to the user's browser. So effectively, our live environment acts as a gateway between my corporate intranet and my destination user out on the internet. And we're able to bring all of that together without making any changes to our corporate intranet environment. So I don't need to make any changes to my firewall, my web publishing software, or the administrative layer of my SharePoint environment. Now, the ease with which I can do that is really evident when I come to the live settings. So you can see here I simply tick this and make it publish it to live. I can go ahead and select the shortened URL. This just really simplifies the administrative, getting the link out onto my site, making it a little easier to manage. And then critically here, I can come down and allow anonymous access. So effectively, I'm allowing anyone to access this form without having to authenticate back against my corporate intranet. That's the really critical piece in ensuring I can now get this out onto the public internet. And now, just again to explain there, I've had to make no changes to my corporate firewall or my web publishing software. Azure and Nintex Live has really provided all the gateway connectivity there for me, ensuring a communication out to the user's browser. The information comes then back when the form is submitted back to Azure, and then given back to my corporate internet via a secure channel. Of course, we have some other details here. So there's the ability to apply some maximum submissions, an expiry date at the point at which the form will no longer be available. I can set a default time zone, which is critically important when you're looking to capture date-relevant information. And I can also go ahead and set a customized cancel message and confirm message. Now, while a lot of that certainly is possible with an InfoPath web-based form with some additional development and configuration, we certainly can't get that same level of complexity with our PDF form. And so it's in doing so that you can, I hope you can start to see the process we've gone through to identify from our PDF form how we can create a better form, and we've ended up here with our Nintex form, and in this case our Nintex Live form, publishing that out to the internet. Okay, I'll just jump out of this and get back to my home page. All right, that finishes my first example, really around how do we do a better form and how does Nintex form fill that gap for us. My next demonstration is around, as I mentioned, the key here is really about capturing user data, and really how simple it is to broaden the base of your user audience by targeting them on any platform and anywhere. So the form I have here is the Partner Awards submission form that was used just recently to gain submissions for the Partner Awards. Now, so just to go through the form, another cool thing to really just touch on here before I get to the mobility story. As I explained, there are some additional validation features that come with Nintex forms that certainly weren't available to me in my PDF form. One of the really cool things here is that if I go ahead and just put in some test data, you can see here that I've just with a basic bit of JavaScript, I've been able to immediately display feedback to my user. In this case, I have a control where I want a maximum of 1,000 words, and as the person goes ahead and types the information in, I'm giving them a live count of how many words they're entering. Just again, it's a really good example about how I can provide immediate feedback to my user. Okay, so I'll just jump out of that and take us through to the form designer again, and really expand on this mobility story. Okay, so as the designer opens here, now one of the really key features here, which is again certainly pushes us beyond the boundary of what we could do with our PDF form, as you see here, the designer surface. All of this has been constructed and put together using some relatively basic HTML design concepts, really just around flow layouts, cascading style sheets, CSS to apply some styling and branding, tables and so forth. So with a Nintex form, you automatically broaden the designer audience that you have within your organization. No longer are you limited to somebody, especially with the PDF scenario, no longer limited to somebody who has good design knowledge with Adobe Writer, like a graphic designer. Again, you've automatically opened this up to anybody who has the ability, with some relatively intermediate HTML design skills, to start building and designing a form like this. And as you can see, a relatively complex form. And even extended again with some relatively simple JavaScript knowledge as well. Alright, so a quick look at the designer. You can see here on the left-hand side, we have our designer palette. We come through some of just the standard controls. As I mentioned, just standard ASP.NET controls you can leverage on the form. We can certainly hook into SharePoint a little bit as well. We have much more of a tightly bound story around our support for SharePoint by gaining some external data, hooking into other list items. And another really cool feature here, this workflow diagram. I'll show that one in a later demonstration. But of course, most importantly for the design process is we can now go ahead and drag and drop and grab any of the fields from our list and expose them and get them onto our form. But the mobility story itself, again, is really very solid around the Nintex form design scenario. You can see here, this is the interface I'll be looking to present for a Windows Phone 7. I've got another here for the iPhone, and again another one for the iPad. And as you can see, the iPad is very similar to the desktop version, but I can guarantee again that I'm designing a form that will make the most of the available real estate I have on that tablet device. So what I'd like to do now is just show you how easy it is to start putting together a mobile interface for my form here. Now, if I jump to the smartphone, this is just a pre-broken version of my smartphone, so I'll just go ahead and delete that again and start this one off. Okay, so I've now deleted out my smartphone layout, and I can go ahead and just go through the process of recreating this and getting this back underway. Okay, so I now start with pretty much the desktop version just put into the available layout I have for a smartphone device. Once again, just ensuring I'm making the most of the real estate I have available to me. And so what I'm going to do here is, I won't labor this too much, but just quickly show you how with some basic drag-drop functionality I can quickly start rebuilding this form to suit and match my new mobile layout. Now I'm going to quickly just put this together. If we can see some control settings, but as you can see, the design experience really is extremely simple with some mouse action and some keyboard action as well. Obviously, for a production scenario, you would have a cascading style sheet targeted towards the mobile device, and then even reauthor and realign some of those images just to make sure you are getting the most out of the real estate you have available to you and that presentation within the smartphone. But to begin with here, it's really just a matter of showing how easy it is to start rebuilding this interface and really illustrate the overall iterative process you can go through to start building an interface from scratch, or in this case, rebuilding my desktop layout to be for a smartphone. And you can see here, again, just a really relatively sophisticated design process. All the controls are certainly aware of their Z-index or where they are in the layering process. And I can just send this particular control to the back. And you can see here automatically I'm starting to iteratively rebuild my desktop form to match my smartphone device. However, for the design process, really topped off by a very cool feature here where I can go ahead and preview the device, preview my layout, and see how it's going to appear in my smartphone device. Now, the really powerful thing here is that having undertaken development efforts for mobile devices like this before, normally this would involve a developer, Visual Studio, some plugins to go and show exactly how it'll look in a particular mobile device and so forth. Instead, what we have here is a designer surface that gives a full end-to-end design process with the actual construction through to the presentation and preview that you can put into the hands of somebody who has, as I mentioned again, just a basic understanding of some HTML design concepts, CSS layouts and so forth, automatically expanding the audience with which they can start designing and really leveraging the power of these forms. Okay, I'll just close out of this and get back to my home page. Alright, so that completes my first set of demonstrations. I'd like to take this opportunity just to go back to my slide deck and really just focus in on some of those key benefits that come from this. Okay, as you would have seen, as I mentioned, there are quite a lot of benefits there. Broadening the design experience to a lot more people within your organization, the ability to target people on any platform at any time. But some of the other really key benefits certainly do become apparent as well. First and foremost is this ability to publish to SharePoint with full support and immediately start recognizing the value in your data. Then, as I expanded on, that capability to then leverage the cloud via Nintex Live and Nintex Live Forms and really reach out beyond your corporate intranet to your public user and give them the ability to access your form and submit data back within your corporate intranet via anonymous access and so forth, without any changes to your corporate firewall or your web publishing software. And of course, then there's the mobility story, that ability to automatically expand your user audience and target them on any platform and on any device really does automatically make that takes the form itself from just being browser friendly to really being device friendly. And of course, given that this is a Nintex product, there is an exceptionally tight integration story around workflow as well. I mean, we can really easily go and apply workflow to a form and start extending the experience through to process automation. That in fact provides a fantastic segue into the next section, and in fact, part 2 of the presentation. Okay, as I mentioned, this will be this does get a little more complex now and show how we can extend forms and the overall solution itself. First, I'd like to take a look at some process automation. And certainly, while I've identified how we do have a very powerful and valuable product here with Nintex Forms, this is really now about what we can do if we put a process behind the form and the value we can achieve with that, especially leveraging Nintex workflow to drive that process. And of course, the next step then will be to move further into solution development. And again, identify how you can use Nintex Forms as a piece of your overall solution development strategy. Now, the example here will be about showing a systems integration solution, a proof of concept we've developed at this stage to take data from a Nintex form and get that into a line of business application we have via SharePoint and a workflow. In fact, that line of business application is Microsoft CRM. Okay, so I'll just kick off the next demonstration. Okay, as I mentioned, this one is far more focused on process automation. I've taken a relatively generic process here, being that of talent recruitment, but as I do go through the demonstration, I'll certainly illustrate how this could easily be applied to any process automation and how it can certainly be leveraged within your organization. Okay, so to kick off the process, what we have here is a form which will capture an initial submission from a party that is interested in joining Nintex as a developer. Now, before I do get in, I'll just quickly explain. I am using the on-premise version of the form here. This is displayed in a production environment as a Nintex Live form. It just makes it a little simpler and easier to show from a demonstration environment this way. But again, as you can see, we have a branded Nintex form with a banner and certainly some formatted text there, giving us an initial explanation of what the form is and what it is I need from my audience to fill the form in. As we come down here, we have another very simple but extremely important concept, that of the mandatory field, something not seen on the other couple of forms. Now, the importance here isn't just ensuring that I get data in the field, but it's far more around ensuring that I get data in the fields that are going to drive the logic of my workflow and provide that continuity between the information entered by my user audience and the information I need to go and execute my process that is being driven by my Nintex workflow. I'll just go ahead and enter some information here and get this underway. Oops. Okay, so I scroll down the form, you'll see just some standard user entry fields. Go ahead and put a number in here. Now, I certainly have the capability to go and put a format on that number to ensure I get the number in the right format, or even just to ensure that I do get a number. At this stage, I've just left it open just to get a number in the value. So again, as I scroll down the form, you'll see just some standard data entry fields. And here we have another extension to the overall user experience that we didn't get in quite the same way from our PDF form. Well, the PDF will give us the ability to go and do some basic formatting, bold, italics and so forth. This rich text box just extends the overall experience and allows the user audience, in this case the potential candidate, just to expand on exactly how they want to present their answer to me. And for, in this case, what is quite an important question, outlining why they want to join Nintex. So just go ahead and scroll to the bottom here and submit my form. Okay, now straight away I have this data available in my list, and again, just to go back to that point, once I have this data in my list, it now has immediate value to you and your organization, again, because you can now do something with that information, and that's exactly what I've chosen to do. I am now running a workflow based on that information being entered, and I can now begin to start to execute my business process. And just to give you a little bit of background there, so essentially this is, to make it a little more generic, you could take any form that you're getting from your initial submission from your user audience, from a customer satisfaction survey, potentially a complaints form or something like that, and here you can begin to flesh out your overall business process. In my case, I'm looking to put together a sample test for my potential candidate, a developer test, in which I'm going to ask them 5 questions just to get a better understanding of their overall developer knowledge. But at this point, you could really do anything with the information. I mean, if it was a customer satisfaction survey, this could be then routed to the related department, or if it was a query, it could go to your finance department, or so forth. So here's where you can really start to build out that business logic and begin to use the data. So just quickly scroll down here. You can see I go ahead and retrieve 5 questions from a pool of questions. And for each of those questions, I go ahead and grab the answer and the available options. And I do that for each of the 5 questions in turn. At the end of the process, I go ahead and store a record in another list that is going to fulfill my exam. A bit of basic debugging, logging it out. And then I go ahead, you can see at the bottom there, I go ahead and send that off to my developer candidate. Another really good thing here, though, is that I've been working on this workflow, in fact looking to use the request data action as another option to go and get that information. But given that I'm working on that at the moment, I've just chosen to disable those actions in the execution of my current workflow. Another really good example about how you can iteratively build this workflow to match your business process without having to get it all done in one spot. Okay, so I heard that email come through. Here we go. And so I've just been sent an email saying, here's your test, please fill it in. So I'll just come back to my site, and in this case, my developer exam. Okay, so here is my exam. This record didn't exist previously. This has been constructed and put together by my workflow. And again, it's another really good example of how you can, while I've taken my first contact from my customer, in this case my potential candidate, I've done something with that information. I've rerouted around the organization, or in this case I've built my practice or sample test. I've then re-communicated back to my customer in question with a follow-up or with some additional information. And then again, I'm asking for some more information, to which I can now go ahead and run another workflow and finalize that process by executing the next step of the overall process, in this case, which is completing the test. Okay, so you can see here just a relatively basic test. I'll just go ahead and answer some of these questions. Okay, we scroll to the bottom of the form. Okay, and another really cool feature, I know I need an answer to all 5 questions. So again, I've just made that a mandatory field and caught that before the form could be submitted. Given that I know the answer to this one, I just go ahead and answer that and now submit my form. Okay, so this form has now been posted back, and the next step is my workflow will now go ahead and mark that test, determine how well the potential candidate did, and then send them an email advising their overall score. I think we'll take a quick look at that workflow and see where we did get to on that one. Okay, we've certainly come through there, and it's requesting approval. So as part of this overall process, we do have a gateway here before the email does go back out to our candidate, just a request for approval before having that final notification. So just to get this out, I'll quickly go ahead and approve. Now you notice here, I would have ordinarily received an email requesting approval. I have a slightly disconnected email environment here in my demo/dev environment, so I'll just go ahead and use just the task list itself to get access to that approval. Here we go, quickly approve that. And that information, that workflow will now complete, and the mark has now just come through to me. Here we go. Worse than yesterday. Okay, so 40%, but at least it's a really good example of how I've now in real time been able to provide feedback to my candidate about how well they did in this particular test. Okay, so just to recap there, it certainly shows how you can take a multi-step process that involves, at least in this case, 2 interactions with my end customer asking for additional information, and the ability to then go and apply a process and really recognize the value out of that data at 2 separate stages with 2 individual workflows. Okay, there are, of course, some other benefits that come from that. So again, I'm just going to jump back to my slide deck and focus in on some of those benefits. Okay, as I've mentioned a number of times here, the real key here is about unlocking the value in your data. As soon as you have that information captured in a list via our Nintex form, you can really start doing something with it. And you can certainly see there how I've been able to apply a relatively complex process just based on the data I've captured from my user. Just to focus on that a little more. So ordinarily that overall process would have involved a number of different actors to achieve. There would have been a senior developer that would have, at least at one single point, have authored the test. There would have been an HR person to interact with the candidate and start sending those emails back and forth. And then again, we would have had a developer involved in marking the test and finding out how well they did, or at least providing some guidance on an overall marking strategy. And then, of course, that further interaction in providing the mark to the candidate, and then, of course, some follow-up and next steps. Based on the process I've just presented to you, though, I've been able to achieve all of that without any human interaction, and really given a good real-time level of access and communication back to my user audience. And of course, the tremendously cool part about that is zero code, no custom development. As you've seen, that's all come together simply by leveraging the power of the Nintex form to get to communicate with my end user audience, and then using workflow to really drive the process. Again, really answering that question of what can you do with Nintex forms when you put a process behind it. Okay, demonstration 2, and in fact my final demonstration. I'll just jump back to my slide deck. Now this one really does certainly take it up a notch and look at some of the complexities, the complex solutions you can achieve with Nintex forms. And in fact, the real key here is identifying how you can use Nintex Forms as a piece of your overall solution development strategy. Now, in this case, this is really about providing just a really quick bit of background. This is about providing a mobile interface, or an interface any device anywhere, although this is targeted for the tablet, to my sales force, my territory manager, giving them the ability to go ahead and fill in some information and then have that routed through via SharePoint and a workflow into our line of business application, in this case our CRM. Now this is certainly a proof of concept at this stage, but it does show some of the really awesome development capabilities you do have when you start bringing those pieces together. Now, as mentioned, this is a form that will be available anytime, anywhere, so it does leverage an Nintex Live Form, but as we can see here, I have a very, very limited audience that I want to use this form, even though I'm making it available on the internet. In fact, I want this form to only be available to my territory managers rather than sort of anyone, anytime. And so I've been able to leverage a really powerful feature that comes with the Nintex Live Forms, and that is the ability to leverage the three options you can see before you there to go ahead and provide some authentication to my form. Now in this case, I'm going to use Windows Live and use my Windows Live ID to drive that. Again, just ensuring that I've got a secure form here. I'm not simply making it available to anyone, as I was perhaps with my survey form. Oops, I think I messed that up. Okay, you can see here I've been forced to authenticate, enter my details. And this will then go ahead and get me through to my form. Now, there's quite a lot going on here, so just a little bit of an explanation. And again, just to cover, this provides the full interface for my territory manager to get information into our line of business application, our CRM. Okay, so some of the logic we've built in this. Firstly, if my territory manager knows the account number from CRM for the customer that he's potentially conversing with right now, he or she can certainly go ahead and enter the number in. Upon submitting the form, our logic will go ahead and locate that particular account and use that to attach the opportunity, quote, or order we're about to create. However, most often they're not going to know the number, or it might be a new customer and they won't yet have a presence in our CRM, at which point they can certainly go ahead and enter just an account name, being the name of the customer's organization. And the same custom logic will apply, where we'll go ahead and look for that account in our CRM and use that where possible, otherwise go ahead and create that account based on the information we have here. So I'll just enter my email address as that of the potential customer. Okay, we have that detail right. Yep. Okay, and as you can see here on the right-hand side, this is where the form really starts to come to life. I have the opportunity here, or the potential, to go ahead and create an opportunity, a quote, or an order. Now, in all cases, I know as part of the business process I'm looking to emulate that I do need to create an opportunity in every case. However, again, reflecting the business process I'm looking to model here, if I create an order, I know that a quote is required as well. So you can see with a simple bit of JavaScript, when I go and select an order, I just go and pre-select the quote as well. Now, while that's a very simple bit of JavaScript, the power really is the effort we've gone to understand what are the data entry options needed and do whatever we can to simplify the overall data entry process. At this stage, I might find that I'm considering my territory manager may be face-to-face talking to a potential customer, tablet in hand, and so I want to do whatever I can to reduce that overall data entry mechanism so they can carry on and continue that conversation. And leading on from that, we've also worked to understand what are the most common data entry fields, and you can see here we've pre-populated all of the fields with what 80% of the time gets entered. Again, just to improve and enhance the overall data entry experience, especially from a mobile device. I can just finalize the form here, fill my remaining fields. I'll just certainly go ahead and select a product. We have some additional functionality here. I can certainly expand my opportunity with a software assurance or a premium support product if I need to. In this case, I'll just leave it as is and just go down and submit my form. Now, a really important part to explain here for the overall process, and something that's very important when targeting a mobile user like this. As far as the overall process goes, this is the end of the mobile story. The information has been captured, from my territory manager entering the details, and it's now been submitted and found its way back into my corporate intranet. The rest of the process now happens on site in my corporate intranet, and you'll certainly see that come to play. Okay, we'll just jump out of that and come back to my opportunity list. Okay, so it hasn't come through as yet. It's just an old one there, but that information will be routed via Azure, and the underlying workflow is kind of complex as well, so it does take a little time to execute. But it does provide me the perfect opportunity to show you the underlying workflow and how we've been able to apply that business logic. Okay, so you can see here straight away our first action is to call. We've created a custom WCF service that interacts directly with our line of business application. And here really is the power of workflow when integrating with a line of business apps. I mean, I've simply, the code itself just calls out to the web services exposed by CRM to execute the creation process. And again, you could do that with any application that it goes ahead and exposes a web service layer in that manner. And as I mentioned, being a proof of concept, we have some rudimentary kind of error handling here, but simply enough at this stage to capture, did an error occur? And then I just log that out, find out what happened, so the developer can continue their process of understanding what happened and keep building the overall workflow. Of course, if everything went well, some of the line of business data will be then inserted, returned and inserted back into my list item, so I can again start using that information in the logic of my workflow. And as you saw above on the top right hand side of the form, I had the opportunity to select whether I wanted a quote or an order. Here's a good example here of how I can take that information and use that to drive my business logic and execute some custom functionality. In this case, my custom functionality is to go ahead and create a PDF version of the quote via CRM. I then upload that into a document library contained within this site, and then use the power of workflow to go ahead and attach to that PDF and then put it into an email and send it out to my prospective customer. A really good example of a great use of a PDF in just displaying static information out to my target audience, in this case my prospective customer. And of course, some additional logic here that does drive my process. Was an order requested? And if it was, another good example of how you can manage, you can reflect your overall user process here in your workflow. For us, at this stage, it's been decided that before going and creating the order, as that leads into our invoicing, we need an approval. So you can see here we've automatically decided that as part of creating the business process, we need some human interaction at this stage, and workflow gives us the perfect mechanism to achieve that. Can certainly again come down here. I call the custom component create the order, re-update my CRM with some further information. I'll illustrate that in a moment, and then email the territory manager to let them know that yes, the creation process is complete and the order has been created. I did hear the email come through there, so I'll just jump out, and you can see here. So this again provides a really cool solution where potentially my territory manager, tablet in hand, is talking to a prospective customer, mobile interface, fill in information, and then me as the prospective customer, I've just felt my smartphone go off, and what do you know, there's my quote. And I can certainly go ahead and open this and show you what I mean. Here's the PDF, my quote. It's delivered to me within a matter of minutes. Really nice, excellent way to achieve that point of contact interaction. My list item will now be available, and another really great feature here. So as I mentioned, given the overall process, this is now back in the office, which will often be a part of an overall mobile process you're looking to model. Is at this stage, now we're back in the office and looking to process that information. Now, another great feature here is that potentially the potential customer has called up my customer service representative and asked exactly where is the order, as they haven't received any of the order details as yet. Now my customer service representative can easily go into the list item, see the information that was entered. You can certainly see here that this is some of the information I pushed back from my CRM. In fact, this is the URL to the opportunity in question that was created in our line of business app. Just go ahead and show that. And you can see here's the opportunity linking directly into my CRM, showing a really seamless interaction between my form, my Nintex form, and here my line of business application, my CRM. Just come out to my products. You can see here I've got the product that's been created, my fully fledged opportunity. Go ahead and close out of that and come back to my item. And of course, that question of where is my order at the moment, they can certainly scroll down, and this is, as I mentioned, a really cool feature. I can go ahead and display on the, now this is for the on-premise version of the form only, but I can go ahead and display where the underlying workflow driving this form, exactly where it is at that point in time. You can see it down here, my execution process, and the answer for my CSR, my customer service rep, becomes really easy in that, it's still waiting for approval. But of course, we have all the power of workflow here to now go ahead and escalate that approval, delegate it, anything we need to do, task reminders and so forth, all just core workflow functionality. Okay, so to finalize the process, again, I'll just jump back to my manual task list, grab that task and approve it and finalize the process. Again, this approval could have been routed to anyone, perhaps my customer service rep or even the TM themselves to approve. Now that will finalize my overall process. I'll just jump back to my opportunity. That's come through, and you can see here's the live notification back to my territory manager. Yes, it has been created, and here's the link. And again, if we go to the opportunity, you'll certainly see that that is reflected immediately in the underlying workflow and the status view of the workflow. So I'll just quickly scroll down. Here you can see is now I have the URL to the order, which was just created, and you can see as I scroll down here, I have the fully executed workflow, and anyone looking at this knows exactly where it is at that point in time. Okay, so that completes that demonstration. I will again just, as you can see, a lot of information there, a lot of ways that you can start to integrate your line of business applications, leveraging some of those really cool solutions across forms and workflow. I'll just jump back to my slide deck and again just drill into some of those key benefits. Okay, first and foremost, it cannot be overlooked is this ability to rapid prototype with those products, being forms, workflow, and your custom development. You'll quickly find when putting a solution like this together that you can have a very meaningful conversation with your stakeholders very, very early in the solution development process. Ordinarily, after a very short amount of development, the conversation with your stakeholder can often involve a lot of PowerPoint, wireframes, whiteboarding, and just communication. When you can put something together this rapidly and then have, again, a really meaningful conversation with your stakeholders, identifying exactly what the product can do and what the overall solution will be able to do, becomes a really meaningful conversation at that point and really easy to start understanding and communicate the overall solution itself. In fact, as I mentioned, given this is still at a prototype stage, this has made it really, really easy to have that conversation with our TMs and, in fact, our VP of Sales to identify what we are capable of and the functionality we can deliver across a mobile platform and that line of business integration. Of course, again, that iterative development story really holds true when it comes to this kind of development. We've really quickly been able to put together a form and a workflow. In fact, the form was given to our business analyst. He's been able to work directly with the business, again, to understand, as I mentioned, some of what are those common fields that need to be entered, what can be pre-populated, and what definitely needs to be filled in at that point in time. Our developers were then working away on our WCF service to go and give some of the real power to the overall solution. And we've been able to bring this all together with workflow. And then by building out that workflow, you can see, as I mentioned, it was still in quite a development stage, but building out that workflow to provide additional reporting, additional logging, and just making it far more robust as we move to a production solution really identifies how powerful that iterative development process is when using some of these key products. And of course, the line of business integration is such a powerful concept in itself. For this particular solution, we've been able to take Nintex Forms and deliver a really meaningful and value-added presentation layer to our user via a mobile device. We've then used workflow as the real engine to drive the logic and execute, make the decisions we need, seek approvals when appropriate, and drive the overall process. And our custom application, our WCF service, has provided that extension through to our line of business application, our CRM in this case. Just a really good example of how you can take forms, workflow, and some custom development, ensuring each particular vertical is doing the job it's best designed to do. Okay, look, I'd like to thank you all very, very much for attending today's webinar. I'd like to take this opportunity to take some questions. Just bear with me a moment while I bring them up. As I'm loading the questions, please be aware that any questions I don't get to at this stage, they will be recorded and we'll do our best to get an answer to you in a timely manner. And of course, before I do jump in, please be aware that anything I cannot answer, I will refer you to our forum, connect.nintex.com. Please post a question. They will be able to answer this. Anyone from our broader community or our support team will be able to answer the question. Okay, how does the question here is, how does the information get back to your corporate intranet without security credentials or changes to the firewall? The magic is Azure and Nintex Live. So the communication from your corporate intranet to Azure is set up with your connection to Nintex Live when you implement Nintex Live in your corporate intranet, and the form itself is then published out from Azure via that form visualizer to your target audience. The information then comes back, routed back via Azure. So at no stage are you talking to your end customer. You are talking to via a secure channel to our Azure environment, Nintex Live. Another question here, somebody joined late. Is this being recorded? Yes, I can guarantee you this is being recorded and will be available shortly from our website at www.nintex.com/past webinars. Okay, hello, can we query for customer name or part of the name, SharePoint list resources as source, direct import, unsure if we are creating a duplicate? Right, yes, we can. In fact, I think I'll answer this in two ways. So if you are simply just getting information from a SharePoint list, yes, you can go ahead and query an external list and get that information back. I think based on the time this came through, this might be based on the integration solution. At this stage, that form I presented is very much a one-way form. It's not there's no post back at that stage to go ahead and get some additional information. But you touch on a really cool feature. We're looking to extend this proof of concept, and that would be perhaps applying an initial form in front of that allows you to go and put in some customer details, find out if they do exist first, locate them, and then use that customer or create a new one. So we would really just, in our situation, look to extend our solution. As I said, that form I presented is specifically a one-way form, presenting information from my line business application rather than posting back. Okay, do we need to buy additional software to create PDF print forms, or is this process managed by Microsoft Office and SharePoint? There are a couple of ways to answer this one. In fact, and given it's a core Microsoft thing, it might be worth referring to a Microsoft expert on that. But from our perspective, the way we go about in our team presenting PDF forms, in this case, I'll just leverage the example using an integration solution. We use SQL Server reporting services to go ahead and produce a report in a PDF format, and then go ahead and just a bit of custom code to take that PDF, upload it into a document library, and then you expose it to all the power of workflow, so you can use it in a far more meaningful way. Can you save multi-step forms where a user can save it and come back if they can't complete it? That's a fantastic question. I would encourage you to post that one on the Nintex Connect site. I must admit, from my development process so far has been very much focused on capturing information from a user and driving a process. I haven't really tried with the offline capability yet. I would encourage you to just post that on the connect.nintex.com for a much more appropriate and clear answer. Yes, I can repeat the recording website. That is www.nintex.com/past webinars, and it will be available shortly. Okay, just a couple of last questions here. Do I need another server to run Nintex Forms, or does it run on my SharePoint infrastructure? I can guarantee you, yes, it does run on your SharePoint infrastructure. No additional hardware is required to run that. Is the Nintex Form client separately licensed? Yes, it certainly is. The Nintex Forms is licensed separately as it is a separate product. One of the key benefits there, though, is that being a separate product, one isn't dependent on the other. A workflow is not required to run forms and vice versa. So they are separate. But of course, as you would have seen in the process automation, when you bring them together, you start to recognize some amazing capabilities with the two products. They're really amazing synergies between the two. That was the next question. All right, what are the hardware requirements or software minimum requirements for Nintex Forms? No minimum requirements for Nintex Forms, really just the same minimum requirements for an ordinary SharePoint environment. Okay, look guys, that's brought me to the end of the webinar. We do still have just a couple of questions remaining there, so please rest assured they are recorded and we will get an answer back to you shortly. Okay, again I'd like to thank you all very, very much for attending today, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.